it's Nurse Jet, Nursing the Truth, and I hope everyone's having a great Wednesday. Well, this is my third video of today, and as usual, I have my lapis lazuli on this time for intuition and wisdom, and God Thoth and God Anubis and Goddess Bastet also behind me. And as you see behind me, I show a little bit more of my shrine. Just got a lot of stuff going on, guys. A lot of plates, figurines, stones actually. Behind me I have a couple of alabaster stones that I got from the Saqqara temple area. So I know that these things are very, very powerful, and only know, who has walked on these alabaster stones through time and the sands of time in Saqqara. It's wonderful and very, very powerful. Also, too, I have my Ankh. That is a representation of life, not death. And let's see what else. I have my little Anubis trinket jar. He's the protector god. And let's see what else I can show you guys. Rahar Kuti. And as you see, the Eye of Horus I have here. So, just to kind of give you a little bit of why I love Egypt so much, because everything comes out of the land of Kim. So, let's talk about the story of Atlantis. You know, some people think, and some people, have come to the conclusion that was Atlantis Kemet, or Kemet Atlantis? We really don't know. The Pangea effect, where all the continents dispersed and the shifting of the plates, we don't know. But what I do know is when God Thoth said that when the Atlantis sank, he got into his spacecraft and went to the land of Kim. Now, I do not know how far Atlantis or the vicinity was from Kemet, but he had to evidently use his spacecraft to get there. So when he said he had to go to the land of Kim, it was already there and established. So Kim is very old. And if they place this Atlantis sinking at 10,000 BCE, then Kim is very old. Now, I'm going to read you some excerpts out of the book called Atlantis, Insights from a Lost Civilization, from Shirley Andrews. And the book looks like that. And it says that around 10,000 BCE, the self-centered leaders of Atlantis lost interest in material and scientific progress, and their respect for the ancient knowledge vanished. As these powerful black priests dedicated their energies to dangerous occult practices, black magic gradually replaced religion in Atlantis. Some mastered the technique of conjuring spirits not from the higher realm, but from the lower astral or underworld. At the bidding of the dreadful spirits, those who invoke them perform terrible deeds to gain material wealth and power over the frightened populace. Even God Thoth talks about in the Emerald Tablets of the same thing. And I'm sure this is where this lady is pulling this information from, that the black priesthood was doing things and making it bad for the people. Devilish human sacrifice was one of the horrible results. To avoid the wrath of the powerful gods and the underworld spirits served by the evil men, parents sacrificed their children or cut hearts from fellow humans while they were still living and offered them as gifts to the fearful unknown. People were so terrified of these black priests, they mindlessly obeyed them, even participating in supervised orgies where human blood was consumed. You know, this is still going on today. And if you look at this black, dark brotherhood, sacrificial, children missing, blood drinking, these orgies, this is still going on today. And that's not good. And God talks about this. And it says, to avoid recriminations by the black priest, the virtuous magi, see there's that word again, magician, magi, sorcerer, with higher morals increasingly isolated themselves from the daily lives of the majority of Atlanteans. Just as their warnings of an impending Holocaust were ignored by the general populace, so the good priest, frantic prayers for help from above proved fruitless. Discouraged, they withdrew to the inner sanctums of their temples, and like monks today in remote mountains in Zandkar, India, focused on increasing their spiritual development and guarding their religious books and treasures. So the ones that didn't want to be involved went into hiding, prayed and guarded their books and treasures. Without moral guidance and belief in one, now this is critical, without moral guidance, belief in one all-powerful God substantially disappeared among the rank and file. They grew increasingly corrupt, sensual, and self-indulgent, these priests and people. People devoted their lives to eating, drinking, entertaining themselves, and ornamenting their bodies. Marriage became less common, interest in religion waned, and those who ventured out on the streets alone or after dark were at risk of being robbed, beaten, or tortured. You know, it almost sounds like a case of today's living. Materialism. How pretty can we be? What can we do to ourselves? People not getting married. And it says, during this unpleasant final period of Atlantis, the army was engaged abroad protecting the lands they acquired from other countries and constantly fighting for more. Wow, these Atlanteans were fighting for more? Oh, word up. This sounds like the Roman Empire. You take and you take and you take and you take, but you will come falling down. In 10,000 BCE, at the merciless Atlantean soldiers were attempting to occupy additional regions in the Mediterranean, they were defeated in Greece. The buck stopped in Greece. Much later, in Plato's day, an annual festival to Pallas Athene, the patron goddess of Athens, continued to recognize their victory over the Atlanteans. Wow, so the Grecians are older too. During the ceremony, prominent authorities dedicated a woman's garment that symbolically represented the ancient triumph of the Athenians over the invading Atlanteans. The robe was pledged to Pallas Athene, the sworn enemy of Poseidon. Uh-oh, Inky, Houston has a problem. So, what are we going to do? So the victorious Greek soldiers who followed the Atlanteans back to their homeland were captured when they reached Atlantis and taken as prisoners to the city of the Golden Gates. Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco. Simultaneously, one of the adepts described a dream of rumbling earthquakes, mountains, tidal waves, tremendous volcanic eruptions, followed by uncontrollable fires and floods that destroyed Atlantis. Now you have 3 tiers of being called that high priest. You have your initiate first, you're an adept second, and then you're the magi or magi third. And you graduate. In quick response to the combination of the presence of Greek troops on the soil and the formidable vision of the destruction of their land, those in command ordered that all Greek prisoners be sacrificed to the gods immediately. So, the Atlanteans captured the Greeks, and they sacrificed their Greek prisoners to the gods. Following this gruesome event, a magnificent banquet was prepared, and the leaders, although full of apprehension arising from the adept stream, sat down to feast just as ominous black shadows grow as the sun recedes. So with the approach of darkness, the earth slowly began to tremble with ever increasing violence. So I'm wondering if the effects of Atlantis, it did cause problems, because when you're not in harmony with nature and humanity, then stuff will be out of sync. And so therefore man destroys himself. Nature doesn't do it to us, we do it to nature. And nature reacts to what we put out. See, nature is conscious, and they live by nature, for nature, through nature. We, on the other hand, we like to screw things up. Lightning flashed, hail fell, and peals of thunder drowned out the screams of the terrified Atlanteans. Before long, the volcanoes thrust out lava and deadly fiery objects that ignited uncontrollable fires. The earth's shaking disturbed huge underground storage vast of energy, and those inflammable gases exploded one after another with the sounds of a tremendous fanfare. More roaring flames filled the air with vast clouds of toxic fumes, and the terrible earthquakes increased. Within a short time, at last, Ice Age quickly ended. The sea consumed all but the mountaintops of the last large island of Atlantis, as well as many other areas of the earth. Yes, dear truth seekers, Atlantis is under the water. The whole thing and other parts of the world, the continents, are underwater. God Thoth said in his prophecy that before mankind totally destroys himself, that his people, Atlantis, shall rise from beneath the ocean waves, and they shall rule again. the world, the flood and devastation that followed and portrayed in stories passed down from generation to generation. Frisians, an ancient Dutch people who were primarily sailors, wrote in Dara Linda Boek. Let's see what they had to say. Now, this is what the Dutch people said. At land, as the land was called by seafaring people. Was it called Atlantis? The seafaring people called it Atland. It was swallowed by the waves together with its mountains and valleys, and everything else was covered by the sea. Many people were buried in the ground, and others who escaped died in the water. The mountains breathed fire, and the forests were burned to a cinder, and the wind bore the ash which covered the entire earth. Now, it gets even better. Stay with me, truth seekers, because it all stems from ancient times. And you have to get the ground root of it all and then work your way up to present day BS. Now, the Bible and the Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh, which you have to read the Epic of Gilgamesh, written over 1,000 years before the Bible. Think about this. Describe the flood over the earth in similar ways. In the Caribbean island of Haiti, descendants say rain, floods, and fire from volcanoes preceded the disappearance of the big country, the homeland of their ancestors. They believe persons who escaped the Atlantean Holocaust came to Haiti from the sinking island and killed numerous people when they arrived. Have you been to the Caribbean? Have you been to Haiti? What color of people are they? They're blacks. Black people are way older than the white people. Comparable accounts of natural catastrophes and excess water are found in almost every culture on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. Legends told in North, Central, and South America portray the shaking earth, volcanic eruptions, and terrible tidal waves. Then darkness, torrential rains, a flood, land sinking, and nowhere for people to go. Death to all, and to all a good night. Usually the sources of the tale believe their ancestors were the only survivors. We will never know what this cataclysm really was like for people living on the earth at that time. Were so completely ravaged that only stories remain, provoking the imitation and perhaps stirring indistinctive memories in the deeply buried unconscious we all share. In the Kritos, Plato describes in detail the size and composition of the Atlantean armed forces. Yes, they had armed forces. They had a military. Based on these figures, at the time of the last destruction of Atlantis, about 25 million people lived in the doomed country. 25 million? Okay, so New York has approximately, let's just say 5. Let's go 5 times what New York has today. And that's how many people lived in Atlanta. of the helpless citizens endured terrible pain and tragedy and hardship as they were crushed by the collapsed buildings, asphyxiated by the toxins and gases, and cooked by the boiling lava, or drowned when the land sank under their feet. Rapidly flying debris from volcanoes were like arrows, striking fleeing men, women, and children, and screaming, avoiding cracks in the surfaces, rushed in panic across the shaking ground to the wharves, but discovered the remaining docks collapsing, boats sinking, and giant tidal waves crashing down. At this time of need, generous, compassionate people stayed in Atlantis and assisted the victims. These unselfish souls helped a few lucky persons to escape and ease the pain and suffering of many of the dying at the last moment, just before they themselves experienced drowning, suffocation, or painful incineration. The Good Samaritans summoned their spiritual powers to avoid the disagreeable experience of a painful death on earth. Leaving their bodies, they transcended to a higher realm. Others utilized levitation to leave the flaming land and travel by way of small islands to the southeastern coast of North America. Native Americans still describe the remarkable arrival in the air. Okay, so there are documents of ancient stories. I mean, I don't see how you cannot believe something that was written thousands of years ago. I don't think that thousands of years ago they meant to trick everybody. This is stuff that they wrote, they saw, they wanted to tell. One of the many tales about the destruction of Atlantis recalls that at the height of the confusion, the final respected ruler of Atlantis, Wotan, or in parentheses, Wotan, Woden, or Odin, as he is referred to in lands adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean, lined up the ships stocking them with food, books, and animals. As the earth shook, the fire sprouted from the mountains, and he climbed to the top of a great unfinished pyramid. Okay, a pyramid. Thoth, the great architect of wisdom and knowledge, and shouted to his people to remain proud of their beautiful homeland and never fight against each other. This is that person telling them that. To facilitate this, he commanded the leaders to always wear on their heads 2 white feathers from the breast of the condor, the bird of lightning. He ordered his son to lead half the people in their boats in the direction of the sunrise, and his grandson to take the rest toward the setting sun. Wotan stayed on his high perch, offering support, even though his voice was lost in the screams of people below him and the roar of the volcanoes. Before long, forming water covered his helpless body. Without delay, the ships, many of them in flames like animals racing in terror from a blazing forest, turned and fled to the open sea. Petrels and other migrating seabirds circled in the Atlantic, just as they have done for thousands of years, as if they expect to find land. Their actions resemble birds circling an area where a shopping center is now located on a field in salt marsh that was once their home. A lovely butterfly with orange wings resembling the colors of a sunset lives in British Guyana. And every year brightly colored clouds of male Catobasilia fly out to the Atlantic Ocean towards where Atlantis was located. It is a fatal flight There is no place to land, and they all die at sea. You see, the story is the vibrational frequencies of man. The evil, the hatred, the doing wrong to your brother, greed, being selfish, wanting more, keeping from other people. Thoth talks about that. And that's what destroyed Atlantis. Thoth, we're so thankful that you went to the Lamb of Kim and you set your 2 feet with your staff and you encountered the people that were there at that time. And we thank you for your wisdom and your knowledge, that you gave Egypt the mystery schools and you taught. Because without you, we, the people now of the future, would not have the consciousness and the ability to wake other people up, to show them where this has come from. And we will always be so ever grateful for Egypt, the last of the standing 7 wonders of the world, the great pyramids of Giza, which I have touched and sat on and have taken pictures. I will always be thankful for the opportunity to have went there and seen and smelled the air and the beauty of the beginning of the cradle of civilization as we know it today. I hope this has been a great video for you guys to see what happened to Atlantis. And I will bring you another video about Atlantis shortly. Hotep, Ashe, and we shall see you soon.